Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Wiam Nemu. And today our guest is Mike Batayeh. Welcome, Mike.
Hola.
He's going to make you guys.
Oh, wait, this is Arabic. This is Arabic, not the Spanish channel. I forgot.
Ahlan wa sahlan bik. A native of Detroit who resides in Los Angeles, Mike has guest starred and recurred on several television shows, including notable appearances on Everybody Loves Raymond, The Sheild, Sleeper Cell, Touch and Breaking Bad. He has co-starred in films including American Dreams, Gas, American East, Don't Mess With The Zohans, and his leading role in Detroit Unleaded. Wow, that's a lot of work.
Let me pat myself on the back.
And you should. I'll pat you on the back too. You deserve it. That's amazing. Well, before we get there, I was going to ask you about your Arab American story, although I'm not sure if you're Spanish or Arabic.
No, I'm Arabi, 100%. I just look Latino, so it benefited me when after 9/11 for a few years. Me llamo Hector. That's what I was going by.
I can see you as a Hector, definitely. So, Mike, you were born in Detroit, but your parents are?
They're Jordanian. Yeah.
And so they were. How much of their Arabic did they incorporate into the house, raising you?
Oh, everything, like cooking. We had the fake hookahs. Remember the metal hookahs that your grandmother would have? You try to smoke out of. That was a staple. We had the Virgin Mary painting the eyes would follow you everywhere you went. So very, very Arabi, very religious. Yeah.
Well, that is pretty Arabi. I have one of those too.
Yeah. Where the eyes creep you out when they follow you. Yeah.
So, and you even know a little bit Arabic, right? But you were saying that you kind of go back and forth with different.
Yeah. Like I would do my parents. The weird thing is when I was from like 2 years old to like 4, I spoke nothing but Arabic because I went to the Blad. Probably like 4 years old. 4 years old to about 6 because I went to the Jordan to get my first haircut. That was like the promise that they made God. Like I had 6 sisters, and the only boy is so they promised God if we have a son, we're gonna wait to take him to the Middle East to get his first haircut in the Blad. So when I came back, I spoke nothing but Arabic. And then over time, I grew up in Southwest Detroit, which is predominantly Latino, kind of a mixed bag, but predominantly Latino. And my parents would speak us in Arabic for the most part, but we answered them in English. So we did a hybrid, So my Arabic got really rusty after that. But if I'm around it for like 2 or 3 weeks, like I'd go to the Middle East a lot to perform stand-up comedy, and if I'm there for 2 weeks submerged in it, I can pick it up and I start talking Arabic. I'm like, how the hell did I know that term? Like it would just come back to me.
Right. Yeah, because it was so much in your household. So
yeah. I'd like to speak it much better, but I don't,
So the fact that you were the first boy after 6 girls, is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I don't know if the next question even relates to you because you probably were able to get away with everything.
No, I get the babouche thrown at me every now and then by my mom. Yeah.
Okay, then that was totally Arabi. That's fine.
He was a heavy hand. Yeah.
Yeah, with the sandal, that's our favorite way to get hit, right?
Then
when did you realize that you wanted to be in the film industry, and what steps did you take to pursue that career, and how did your family and community receive that?
It's a series of events. Like when I was a kid, like my oldest sister Jeannie is the one that got me inadvertently turned on to comedy, and we'd watch old movies and stuff. But my first comedy album I heard that was in her room was George Carlin, Class Clown, and I was like, what is that? And then I just started getting on, into Richard Pryor and all that. And I was really, into the comedy. And then when I got older in college at Wayne State, I never really I loved movies and all that. I toyed with it, but I just didn't think it was a possibility. And I met somebody in college who she moved to LA, and then I ended up moving out there to join a comedy troupe that she was in, and got a manager from that. And I just kind of started getting auditions and booking things, and it just kind of, the ball started rolling. And then I got back into stand-up comedy again. And it was like hand in hand. And then I was into writing a lot too. We had a sketch comedy troupe, started writing for the group and performing. And then I was writing other things and jokes and sketches and screenplays, and it just, everything was like a synergy. So I kind of just steamrolled.
When you were following your passion, there wasn't, you didn't feel like a resistance or a lot of obstacles coming in your way? Did you just allow for whatever happened?
Yeah. There's still obstacles. You're always going to have obstacles, trust me, I spent many nights in the closet, like fetal up, in a fetal position crying, but you just got to keep, storing ahead. Now, if you're talking about resistance from people or just from the industry or like family members, do you mean that?
Well, in the past, filmmakers or actors that I interviewed with Middle Eastern background have had sometimes more resistance than other cultures, although in my opinion, probably most cultures would prefer that their children go into a different career.
Oh, okay. So family,
but in the Middle Eastern backgrounds, even more so, because I think we're not quite there yet with films and getting involved in that type of work. So did you feel like you got more resistance from your family? That's why I was wondering. I'm not sure that you found any resistance, or I don't know if your family just welcomed that.
Yeah. Well, my mom passed away at an early age when I was about 13 or so. So it was never any inkling of, entertainment. I was kind of running the streets around that time. It was a pretty bad neighborhood. So, but when I got older, my father, I finally said I was moving to LA, and he wouldn't believe it. You're not going to go, until I was actually driving to the airport, and I see him crying on the porch, so he knew I was serious about it. Yeah. Like, he was just in denial. So they were very supportive. And at a very young age too, I used to play tabla a lot, at weddings and stuff, when my uncle Nusri was a singer. So I was on the stage, and I was kind of entertaining at that age anyways. So it just, everything kind of morphed. And then my father was kind of reserved, he didn't really, Arab men, they don't express their emotions much, but I would, hear from, relatives like, oh, your father's always bragging about you, stuff like that.
So there wasn't a resistance, obviously. It seems like even from
I can't. Okay, now I can see you. Yeah. Of course, there was a little resistance, but it was not like I disown you. You know what I mean? If you do this, and like I said, it was like I had some successes, and then my father saw that. So by the time he actually passed away while I was doing a movie, and I couldn't come home, like he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I couldn't leave the set because they would lose, $50,000 a day basically. So by the time I got home from the set, they put me on the phone with them, and then, and then when I got home from set, my sisters told me he had passed away. So, but, he was aware, he saw me on TV, and it wasn't a far-fetched idea anymore. Like, oh, just come home and so thank God for that.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was very proud at that point.
Well, he saw his last name on the screen, so it made him happy. There was more. I think it was more of that. Yeah.
So, what would you say was your first major breakthrough into the industry?
You mean my first appearance on a television show or a movie, or you mean how like?
So you've been in very like it says in your bio, you've had a lot of notable appearances, but that was because you've had a lot of roles. What was the first role that was where people, it's kind of like revealed your talents to the world?
Or when better yet, when people reached out to me, like old friends or something. Hey man, I just saw you on, that type of thing. I think that happened when I did, at the time there was a show called Boy Meets World.
Yeah,
on
I heard
ABC. It was
that.
like a really popular, yeah, at the time it was a really popular, show for
Mhm.
young adults and teens. So I did a role on there, and my friend's like, "Hey, man, I just saw you on there." I go, "Yeah," because I don't really brag about, or at the time, like calling everybody like, "Oh, watch me," stuff like that. Everybody Loves Raymond early on, those things kind of got me going. And then I think when the industry started picking up was when casting directors started noticing me around that time. Did this Ryan Reynolds had a TV show before he did movies called Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. And then I did a show called Sleeper Cell on Showtime with Michael Ealy. It was like on for 2 years, and I was a recurring role. And that one was my first Middle Eastern character. His name was Ziad. But yeah, prior I was playing different, ethnicities. Like I'd be booked as Latino or Italian or Armenian or stuff like that. But the first time I had a recurring role as well as playing, my own people, that was Sleeper Cell. I think that started the ball going more in the direction of more people seeing it, and seeing me in the industry.
So that's a positive thing for you that you can play different characters because given your looks and
Yeah.
maybe because you were born here, so your accent can blend in into different nationalities.
Yeah, I could do a lot of different. Yeah, I could do a lot of different accents, and I kind of absorb stuff like that. But and I remember early on, I got offered a couple roles that were kind of like the terrorist thing, and I said no because I did a movie called American East, which Alfre Woodard and Tony Shalhoub and Saeed Badria. I remember Tony Shalhoub talking, and he said, your resume is going to be forever. You know what I mean? Like it's good to build stuff, but don't ever do terrorist roles because no matter what great things you do later, it's always somebody's gonna see that little mark on your record, and that's not good for your people. And so I had to say no to a couple big paychecks.
That's a pretty good advice he gave you, but how did you
Yeah.
have the courage to say no? Because most actors are kind of just waiting for any, Arab American actors don't want to be in those stereotypical roles, but oftentimes feel like they have no choice but to accept them. How did you have the courage to say no?
Well, because I knew there was other things coming, and like I said, even if I work, because I early on I did go into a couple auditions, and I did one actually. It was a TV pilot thing. It was like a movie of the week where I did play a terrorist, and it never aired, thank God. But it was very early on, and I never looked the role, so I never, I was thankful enough to where I never got the calls, or if I did enter a room, with auditions, and it was, the look that America sees on the media a lot. I didn't look like that, so I wasn't really castable. So I didn't get very many, influx of those type of roles, But like I said, the couple times I did, I said no to a couple of them. A couple of them were pretty big too, like movies. Yeah.
So
One of them was a Marvel movie. See if you can guess. But I was like, no.
Okay,
Unless I always said this. I think I remember saying this. I go, unless it's a significant role and it has a good backstory as to show the reason why that person is doing that, as opposed to like, that's too America, and then the stereotypical bullshit. Like I'd like to know what happened. Like I did a short film once where the guy was a point person for this kid he was going to come to America to do something because he is going to the plant where the bomb was made that was dropped on his village in Palestine, and he was coming for revenge to use that and do something to a facility in America as a payback. And I was a point person, and the speech I give is like, why are you backing out now? You're here for this. We showed you the way. This thing was dropped on your village. It killed your brother. Why wouldn't you do it? So it was a deep kind of a scene. I'm not doing it justice, but stuff like that. If you're going to do that and show a both sides scenario, then I don't have a problem with, playing that quote unquote role.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I appreciate you saying that because I did, as I was a journalist for over 10 years, and I got to interview a lot
Yeah.
of people, including translators, and the stories that they told about some of the people that became terrorists are so interesting. Often, there were some that were drugged, there were some that were captured, and they were held.
Yeah.
They would hold their families hostage or something like that, or if their families were like nearly starving, and then the person feels like for this much money they can do this and that for the family. And you're right, I guess it's the material that's involved, like what's the background of the human being aside from him.
It doesn't, and what people miss, it doesn't, people think you're saying, well, that makes it right, it's justified. No. It doesn't make it right, but it shows you how that person came to that point.
Right.
That's what's interesting to me.
Right. You're not just born as this figure and you're a terrorist and even if the person as a child was trained, for me as a storyteller, and I love movies and I appreciate books and all that, I am interested in how did this seed, how was that planted in this person? I also believe that these are the ways that we can find how to stop these kind of situations. Not that, as a filmmaker or as a storyteller, you don't necessarily sit there and maybe go to that extent about thinking about it, but it makes a difference that, there's something that started somehow, and how did it start? And by the way, every single community has that backstory in their film. We just need to have more of it for the Arab American people.
Yeah, we should get off that topic because we're gonna get flagged by the government like in about 2 minutes.
Okay,
it's gonna get taken out of context. So when they see the clip and be like, "It's good to play terrorists."
On to the next question in that case. And I'm having some people really enjoying this. Somebody finds you very funny, which, I mean, we can't argue with that, right, Mike? But Sandy thinks that this is a great conversation, and it is. I'm so happy that I'm able to have these conversations with like-minded people, because we don't have enough of them, as well as not having enough films. But maybe this will inspire people to either go out and write something, make something, invest in something that will tell our stories, right? Because
let me elaborate. Mm-hmm. And let me elaborate on something that not many people like point out, but even the Arab films made by Arabs is like, it's quite a bit of them. They're good films, but it always has to include sometimes the mistaken identity for a terrorist, or the Palestinian Jew conflict, or this or that. But we have a whole range of like stories that are not, has to be, about religion or this or that, but like, we're everyday people, we have everyday struggles, and there's interesting stories. Those stories should be told more, I think.
I definitely agree. When I first got into the publishing industry, I remember that one of the editors from a top publication that said in New York, that said, "Oh, you write so good, this is so great, but if you write about honor killing, it'll be a bestseller." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't know anything about honor killing, and why should that be the only story being told from all these like billions of people?" But I stuck to my grounds, and for anybody out there watching, and so did you. Obviously, you took that advice, and you still became quite successful despite it, not refusing some roles. And I think there's some kind of something happens within your own character and within your own belief in yourself that you end up. It might take longer, but you really end up in my more successful, or our definition of success, because you're not just falling into something for the money. You realize this is a long-term career that you're investing into. So, that's why I'm impressed by that.
And that's why I reiterate what's important, that Tony Shalhoub, not just for me, but for everybody, when he said, like, you're leaving behind a resume, you're leaving behind this, you're leaving behind your reputation, that, we all have our faults, but it's, if you can avoid it, try not to leave too many marks on your record to where they look back and say, yeah, you did this for your people, or you did this for that, but look what you did here. Like, it almost negates most of the things you do afterwards. And to piggyback off what you said about that person that told you should write about honor killings, there's good money in it. That should tell you something. Like, why the hell would somebody give you that advice? Like, do honor killings, you make so much money off of it. Like,
well, and
that's scary.
I think the Arab Americans that you're saying that some that still will do those stories and put us into these stereotypes.
Those stories need to be told. Yeah, no, I'm not saying don't do them.
They're doing it for the money, because when you get advice, if a producer comes and says, hey, you know what, if you just add that into it, you add this, we're going to make more money, we're going to sell it better. And the person will give in based on that sometimes.
Well, it's like I don't know what's in their mind, but they think like, oh, if we insert a trope that everybody's familiar with about your people, maybe that'll make you more relatable, even though it's like we're putting in tropes that only you see on CNN or Fox. You know, you don't know. I like when I did comedies, like I would do like some Middle Eastern material, but I'd play Latino rooms, urban rooms, all these rooms. But then I would bring in some family oriented, bits about my family and be like, oh, my mom used to do that too. You know, like I did a bit about my mom would get so mad before she whooped my ass, she'd beat herself up first like a wrestler. Like, and then, I was like, it was like prepping as a wrestler and, or throwing shoes and stuff like that. And, I had black people like, my mama did the same shit, Holmes. Like, and those are the things you want to do, is like you want to build a bridge as opposed to like just look at us and our pain, like there's a lot of different stories. And I don't agree when you said that, oh, they just do it for the money. I think those filmmakers shoehorn some of those things in there because they feel like this is part of our identity. So we're going to tell a story, but we're going to shoehorn what into it. Like I did a couple movies that were Arab, thing, and they kind of shoehorned in the mistaken identity for a terrorist bit. And I was like, it just didn't fit in the movie. Good movie, but that moment, I was like, why was it there? But then I understand why, sometimes why it's there. We're kind of, we're at the mercy sometimes of ourselves and what people are expecting from us, So I want to see more movies that are telling stories that you can insert any ethnicity into those roles. It could be Italian, but it's Arabs just by happenstance. That's the cast. Like I wrote a couple movies now that are mostly Arab cast, but you're not going to be seeing anything that's quote unquote the stereotypical, those tropes that we've seen in Hollywood movies about Arabs, I just think that we're more than that. We're more dimensional.
We're more dimensional, yes. And I think when we do tell our stories, our authentic stories, I like what you just said, that a Black person or Mexican person or Hispanic, they'll say, oh, my mom, there's more to relate to than we think, but we don't give enough chance for that. I have a comment from Sam Sacco.
I know Sam Sacco. Sam Sacco to me.
Who actually, he introduced us to you. And he said great things about you. And right now he's saying that, he said, you have to get your own show, brother. So why not? I mean, it sounds
Sam's the man.
You've said such wisdom. You are very funny, and people can relate on all levels. So why not go ahead and do the things that we're talking about right now? Because you're obviously very resourceful.
Well, I did. Like I said, I have. Like I've written for other people, like I said before, screenwriting or bits for people, but it's always been for other people where I'll give myself a little role in it if if it gets picked up or whatever. So two scripts, I have like four, but I like the latest two is like Middle Eastern kind of cast predominantly, but these two are the ones that I have want to be cast in it as a starring role or as co-lead, and the other two are not Arab themed, but one's a horror, another one is a comedy that I just kind of want to sell and produce. So that's kind of the next phase I want to get to, is where, yeah, I still love, acting in other people's stuff, inshallah more, but I want to start doing my own things as well, and telling, non-Middle Eastern stories and Middle Eastern stories as well. But the two scripts I have now are I'm really proud of, and one's a comedy and one's a drama, and they're mostly Arab cast.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Looking forward to that. So with us having,
well, if you can find like 1.5 million or 2 million, just let me know.
okay,
I'd like to produce
I'll give you a call right away.
So just put the word out. It's better to fund it in-house than to,
yeah.
go to our Semitic brothers, if you will, in Hollywood, and see if they'll give us the money. Inshallah, both.
And they need to.
Bridging the gap.
And bringing back, when I interviewed Sam last year, he talked about that. He was he confronted the fact that people of Middle Eastern background, and we talk about the need for these stories, and we keep, we saying that over and over. Now, the amazing talent that we have found, including yourself, that are of Arab background, all they need is that push, that financing that others have, but that what others don't have is the understanding of the power of storytelling and the importance it is for our community. So I loved it. If you get a chance, I'll send you a link that I had the interview with him, and he was very honest. He always has been.
Was Sam Sacco?
Yeah, he just straight out.
No, thank you. No. I don't want to hear from Sam.
No, but he said exactly what you're saying. He said, with that community, you have to step up and understand the power and fund films, because we have no shortage of talent, right? I mean, when we did a casting for a film that I worked on, I mean, the enormous number of Middle Easterners that submitted, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that they all over the United States that were incredibly talented. That I
What movie was that, if you don't mind me asking?
I worked on a movie called Pomegranate. And we shot it last year. And Sam was our producer, and he was our casting director. And when he put the word out, I remember the people that submitted, and they were very, very talented people. We picked the ones that we felt were perfect for our characters, but the ones that we did not pick were very, very talented. It just they did not match in the roles. But we have a couple of minutes left, and it's just, what advice would you give people trying to break into this industry? Like in your case, who influenced you? How did you find the inspiration, and what advice would you give others so that they can pursue this and just kind of have, I know that you said that, it wasn't all, of course, very smooth sailing for you, but you have a very positive attitude, and you put a lot of, humor into it, and you seemed like you just kept going straight forward with your work. What advice would you give others?
Well, let me start off by saying, when you said I have a positive attitude, I don't. I'm Middle Eastern. We're not positive people by nature. We have the other shoe's gonna drop syndrome. Like, yeah, it's good, but don't get too celebratory. So no, I'm still like that. I'm trying to be better at being more positive, but I'm more negative thinking than positive. So I'll admit that off the bat. So don't. I don't want to put it out there where, like, just be positive and the world will open for you. That's bullshit to me.
You're so hilarious. By the way, I have to say, I love your humor and your honesty. I love your honesty. That's why it's funny, because you're so honest.
Well, I don't like, when people are, you could see they're full of chara and they're not, they're wiping their mouth, with toilet paper. Right. But to be honest with you, everything's different from when I went to LA. I still think you probably need to be in LA or New York, but it's a different world, especially since COVID. A lot of auditions are happening, what do you call it, virtually, like a self-tape, they call it. You self-tape, and then, so I don't know if I'm going to give the right advice. Other than, the only advice I can give is try to create your own content as well. Like writing for an actor, like try to write roles for yourself, like maybe you're a screenplay, or if you have an idea for a TV show, that would help, just to kind of cover your bases. Like if you want to be in stuff that's of quality to you, then try to write for yourself, or else you'll kind of be at the mercy of whoever you're auditioning for, and sometimes you'll have to take a paycheck, and sometimes you don't know if it's going to come out good or not. So I'd say that's probably the number one rule. If you can, try to write content, write screenplays, write TV shows. Even nowadays on social media, you can do stuff like that. I don't do that, but you can do that. It's
Yes.
not out of the realm. But I would say is like
that way too.
I'm sorry.
I said there has been a lot of people who have been successful.
Yeah, yeah, but it depends on where you want to go with your career. Do you want to just be known, or do you want to be part of some, quality stuff? And if you think you can make your own quality stuff, then by all means do it. But if you want to be part of the acting thing, it's about, putting yourself in those situations. And I don't think anybody could give you advice on you. Like, you should do this and you should do that and go there and do this. It's literally, if you want it bad enough, you'll kind of figure it out. And like I said, there's people are going to be put in your life that's going to be markers to you. Like if I hadn't met that girl in college that went out to LA before me and told me she come, I wouldn't have gone. And I went there and we did a comedy troupe, and then I got my first manager because of the comedy troupe. They saw me on stage, and then that guy got me in auditions, and I booked, and then things went, and then things went down, and things went up. So everybody's going to have their own journey. Yes. You know what I mean? And it's all about reaching out and trying to gather resources of, like, somebody that can help you. Like, try to submit to an agent if you want to just do strictly acting, and that's a good thing too. So I hope it wasn't too verbose what I was saying, but it made some sense to some people. Like I said, the best advice is, like, don't take advice from anybody. Well, just try to get there.
You really honor your individuality, that's probably part of your success, because you honor your individuality and you trust your own instinct. And if everybody did that, I think they would have more the courage to just follow their dreams. And this is something that you did. We wish you.
Well, I'm using it as a stepping stone to get my underwear modeling career going. So, cross your fingers.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for you. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. I've had such an enjoyable time laughing. You're funny, but your wisdom is right underneath all of it. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful day.
It's been a pleasure. All right. Bye, Sam Sacco.